Hanwoo stepped off the transport ship with his old leather bag slung over his shoulder. The Galactic Defense Academy stretched out before him like a metal city floating in space. Bright lights showed ships coming and going from all parts of the galaxy. He had never seen anything so big or so amazing. Other cadets walked past him carrying cases full of shiny weapons. Their gear looked expensive and powerful. Hanwoo looked down at his simple bag. Inside was his grandfather's bow, made of wood and carbon fiber. It looked very old next to all the high-tech weapons around him. "Move along, human," said a tall blue alien with crystal skin. "You are blocking the path." Hanwoo stepped aside and watched the alien walk away. The creature carried a weapon that glowed with purple light. Every few seconds, small sparks danced around it. Hanwoo had never seen anything like it. A human officer with short black hair approached him. "You must be Cadet Hanwoo. I am Commander Yulbin. Welcome to the Academy." "Thank you, sir," Hanwoo said, bowing slightly. It was a habit from home. Commander Yulbin smiled. "No need for that here. Come on, I will show you to your room." They walked through long hallways made of white metal. Windows showed the stars outside and ships moving between them. Other cadets filled the halls. Hanwoo saw aliens he had only heard about in stories. Some had 4 arms, others had skin like rocks, and a few floated in the air without touching the ground. "Your roommate is another human," Commander Yulbin said. "Cadet Taehyun from Earth's Asian continent like you. He arrived yesterday." They stopped at a door marked with numbers. Inside, a young man about Hanwoo's age was cleaning a plasma rifle. The weapon hummed with energy and cast blue light on the walls. "Taehyun, meet your roommate," Commander Yulbin said. Taehyun looked up and smiled. "Hello, I was hoping for another human. These alien weapons are hard to understand." Commander Yulbin left them alone. Hanwoo put his bag on the empty bed and looked around the small room. Everything was clean and new. Back home, his room had wood walls and paper windows. This place felt cold but exciting. "What weapon did you bring?" Taehyun asked. Hanwoo opened his bag and pulled out his bow. The wood was dark brown and smooth from years of use. The string was made of special fibers his grandfather had taught him to make. Taehyun stared at it. "Is that wood?" "Yes, my grandfather made it. His grandfather taught him how. But this is a military academy. Do you not have any real weapons?" Hanwoo felt his face get hot. "This is a real weapon. It has been used for thousands of years." Before Taehyun could answer, a loud bell rang. A voice spoke from the walls. "All cadets report to the main hall for orientation." The main hall was huge. Hundreds of cadets sat in rows facing a stage. Hanwoo saw more alien species than he could count. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange he could not guess how they moved or breathed. Admiral Hai-Jin, a human woman with gray hair, stood on the stage. "Welcome to the Galactic Defense Academy. Here you will learn to fight together as one force. You come from many worlds, but you will leave as brothers and sisters in arms." She explained the rules and training schedule. Then she pointed to different sections of cadets. "Each species will now show their traditional weapons. This helps us understand each other's fighting styles." A group of tall aliens with crystal skin stood up first. Hanwoo recognized them as Zephyrians. One of them, the same blue alien from earlier, walked to the stage. His name was Veltar. Veltar held up his glowing weapon. "This is a particle disruptor. It breaks apart anything it hits at the atomic level. One shot can destroy a tank." He fired it at a metal target. The target simply disappeared in a flash of purple light. The other cadets clapped and cheered. Next came the Gorlans, who looked like walking rocks. One carried a hammer that made the air shimmer around it. "This graviton hammer controls gravity itself," the Gorlan said in a deep voice. "It can crush enemies or make them float helplessly in space." More species showed their weapons. Energy swords that could cut through anything. Guns that fired liquid fire. Devices that could make things invisible or stop time around small areas. Finally, Admiral Hai-Jin called for the human cadets. "Humans, please show us your weapons." Several humans went to the stage. So young, a girl with long black hair showed an energy blade that crackled with white lightning. Another cadet demonstrated a plasma rifle like Taehyun's. Each weapon looked powerful and modern. Then Admiral Hai-Jin looked directly at Hanwoo. "Cadet Hanwoo, please bring your weapon." Hanwoo's heart started beating fast. Every eye in the hall turned to him. He stood up slowly and walked to the stage. His bow felt heavy in his hands. "This is a bow," he said in a quiet voice. "It shoots arrows." For a moment, the hall was completely silent. Then someone started laughing. Soon the sound filled the entire room. The Zephyrians laughed the loudest. Veltar was holding his stomach and pointing at Han Wu. "A stick and string?" Veltar called out.
Is this a joke?
"Do humans still live in caves?" Other aliens joined in.
How primitive.
"What is next, rocks and clubs?" "No wonder humans needed help to join the galaxy." Han Wu's face burned with shame. He wanted to run away and hide. But he thought of his grandfather, who had carried this bow in Earth's last war. His grandfather had never run from anything. Admiral Hai Jin held up her hand for silence. "Every weapon has its place, cadets. Remember that, but the damage was done." As Han Wu walked back to his seat, aliens whispered and pointed at him. Some made shooting motions with their fingers and laughed. Taehyun patted his shoulder when he sat down. "Do not listen to them," he whispered. But Han Wu could hear the aliens talking. Humans bringing Stone Age weapons to a modern war. They will get everyone killed with their primitive thinking. Maybe they should not be here at all. Commander Yul Bin watched from the side of the hall. Unlike the others, he was not laughing. He had seen many weapons in his time as a soldier. He knew that sometimes the oldest tools were the most dangerous. He also noticed something the aliens missed. Han Wu held his bow like someone who knew how to use it. As the orientation ended and cadets filed out of the hall, the laughter continued. Han Wu walked with his head down, carrying his grandfather's bow. He had come to the academy to prove that humans belonged among the stars. Instead, he had become a joke. But deep in his heart, a small fire started to burn. His grandfather had taught him that a weapon was only as good as the person using it. Tomorrow, training would begin. Then he would show them what a human with a bow could do. The training alarm woke Han Wu before dawn. Red lights flashed in his room while a voice announced morning exercises. Taehyun groaned and rolled out of bed, grabbing his plasma rifle. "I hate early mornings," Taehyun said, putting on his uniform. Han Wu was already dressed. He had been awake for an hour, practicing his breathing exercises like his grandfather taught him. The bow lay across his knees, familiar and comforting. In the training hall, Instructor Ji-hoon stood before rows of cadets. He was a thin human man with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. Behind him stood targets at different distances. "Today we test your weapon skills," Ji-hoon announced. "Each cadet will hit targets at 50, 100, and 200 meters. You have 3 shots at each distance." The alien cadets looked confident. Their weapons had computer targeting systems and energy that moved at light speed. How could they miss? Veltar went first. His particle disruptor hummed as he aimed at the closest target. Purple light flashed and the target vanished completely. The same happened with the second and third targets. Perfect score. Other aliens followed with similar results. The Gorlan cadet made his targets float away with his gravity hammer. A snake-like alien melted her targets with acid shots. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and laser pulses destroyed target after target. The human cadets did well too. So Young's energy blade extended into a whip that cut through all 3 targets in one smooth motion. Taehyun's plasma rifle hit each target dead center, leaving smoking holes. Then it was Han Wu's turn. He walked to the firing line carrying his bow and a quiver of arrows. The other cadets whispered and pointed. Some aliens made fake shooting motions and laughed quietly. Han Wu pulled an arrow from his quiver. The shaft was straight carbon fiber, black as space. The tip was sharp steel that his grandfather had forged by hand. He placed it against the string and raised the bow. The first target stood 50 meters away. Han Wu drew the string back to his cheek. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "Feel the bow become part of your body. Breathe in, breathe out, then hold. See the arrow's path before you shoot," he released. The arrow flew in a perfect arc and struck the center of the target with a solid thunk. No flash of light, no explosion, just a simple arrow buried deep in the target. Some aliens stopped laughing. For the second target at 100 meters, Han Wu adjusted his aim slightly. The arrow flew true again, hitting just above the bullseye, close enough to satisfy any instructor. The third target at 200 meters was barely visible. Most energy weapons became less accurate at that distance because of power loss. Han Wu studied the target for a long moment. He could feel a slight air current moving from left to right. His grandfather had taught him to read the wind. He drew the bow fully, holding the string with 3 fingers. His arm muscles remembered thousands of hours of practice. He aimed slightly to the left to account for the wind, then released. The arrow seemed to take forever to reach the target. Unlike the instant light of energy weapons, everyone could watch its flight. It curved slightly in the air, then struck the target just inside the ring. Instructor Ji-hoon raised his eyebrows. "Impressive, Cadet Han-woo. Your arrows hit all 3 targets." "But sir," Veltar called out, "his weapon is so slow. By the time that arrow reached the target, I could fire a dozen shots." "True," Ji-hoon replied. "But tell me, Cadet Veltar, what happens when your weapon runs out of power?" Veltar looked confused. It recharges. And how long does that take?" "About 30 seconds for a full charge." "Cadet Han-woo, how long does your weapon take to recharge?" Han-woo pulled another arrow from his quiver. "It is ready now, sir." Ji-hoon nodded. "Interesting. And what if we were fighting in space where energy weapons might interfere with ship systems?" The alien cadets had no answer for that. Training continued for several weeks. Han-woo struggled with energy weapons during technology classes. The computer interfaces confused him and the weapons felt strange in his hands. But every time they practiced with their own weapons, he performed well. Other cadets began to notice. During stealth training, Han-woo's arrows made no sound and left no energy signature for enemies to detect. In zero-gravity exercises, his arrows flew in straight lines while energy weapons sometimes curved unexpectedly due to magnetic fields. Kyung-ho, another human cadet, approached Han-woo after training one day. At first, Kyung-ho had joined the aliens in making fun of the bow. Now he looked embarrassed. "I wanted to say sorry," Kyung-ho said. "I laughed at your weapon on the first day." "It is okay," Han-woo replied. "Many people do not understand. Could you teach me to use it?" Soon So-young joined their practice sessions. She found that archery improved her focus for energy blade combat. Even Tae-hyun asked to learn the basics, but not everyone was impressed. Veltar grew more angry as Han-woo's reputation improved. During mealtimes, he would make loud comments about primitive humans and their Stone Age thinking. One day, Veltar had enough. He stood up in the dining hall and pointed at Han-woo. "I challenge you to formal combat," he announced. "Let us see how your wooden stick performs against real technology." The dining hall went quiet. Formal challenges were allowed at the academy, but they were serious matters. Both cadets would fight with their weapons in a controlled environment until one surrendered. Han-woo looked at his bow, then at Veltar's glowing disruptor. His grandfather had taught him that backing down from a fair fight was worse than losing. "I accept," Han-woo said quietly. Instructor Ji-hoon oversaw the match. The combat took place in a large chamber with floating platforms and metal barriers for cover. Both cadets wore light armor that would protect them from serious injury. "This will be over quickly," Veltar said as he checked his weapon. "That primitive bow cannot even scratch my crystal skin." The match began with both cadets on opposite sides of the chamber. Veltar immediately began firing purple beams at Han-woo's position. The beams destroyed cover and melted metal barriers, but Han-woo was not there anymore. He had rolled behind a floating platform and was moving quietly through the chamber. His grandfather had taught him that sometimes the best strategy was not to fight your enemy's strength, but to avoid it. Veltar grew frustrated as his shots missed. His particle disruptor was powerful but needed time to recharge between shots. He kept firing at where he thought Han-woo was hiding. Meanwhile, Han-woo studied his opponent. Veltar's crystal skin looked tough, but Han-woo noticed something. Between the crystal plates were small gaps where they joined together. His grandfather had taught him that every armor had weak points. Han-woo moved to a position behind Veltar. He drew his bow and aimed carefully at the gap between 2 crystal plates on the alien's back. The shot would have to be perfect. He released the arrow. The carbon fiber shaft slipped between the crystal plates and struck Veltar in the back. The alien's armor prevented serious injury, but the impact was enough to trigger the surrender sensors. "Match over," Instructor Ji-hoon announced. "Winner, Cadet Han-woo." Veltar stared in shock at the arrow sticking out of his back. "Impossible. My skin is harder than steel." "But not harder than perfect aim," Han-woo replied, helping him remove the arrow. Word of the match spread quickly through the academy. The human with the wooden bow had defeated one of the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Alien cadets began to look at Han-woo with new respect. That night, as Han-woo cleaned his bow, Tae-hyun asked him a question. "How did you know where to aim?" Han-woo smiled. "My grandfather taught me that every target has a weakness. You just have to be patient enough to find it. Outside their window, alien ships flew past carrying weapons that could destroy planets. But inside the small room, an ancient bow rested against the wall, having proven that sometimes the oldest wisdom was still the best. The alarm that woke the academy was different from the usual training signals. This one was sharp and urgent, cutting through the night like a knife. Red lights flashed in every hallway while a voice announced over the communication system. All senior cadets and instructors report to the command center immediately. This is not a drill. Hanwoo grabbed his bow and followed Taehyun through corridors filled with confused cadets. Aliens and humans moved together, their usual arguments forgotten in the face of something serious. The command center was a large room filled with screens showing star maps and ship positions. Admiral Hai-jin stood at the center, her face pale as she watched incoming reports. Instructors and senior cadets gathered around her. 3 hours ago, our border station at Kepler 7 went silent, Admiral Hai-jin announced. Captain Dongmin's patrol ship was the first to investigate. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed Captain Dongmin, a young human officer with fear in his eyes. His uniform was torn and his ship's bridge sparked with damaged equipment behind him. Admiral, we made contact with unknown vessels, Captain Dongmin reported. They call themselves the Vorthak. They demanded immediate surrender of all coalition forces. When we refused, they attacked. The hologram flickered as more damage reports came in. Admiral, our weapons are useless against them. Every energy blast, every plasma shot, every particle beam, they work the first time, then nothing. Their ships adapt to our weapons and become immune. Hanwoo felt a cold chill run down his spine. Weapons that could adapt to anything? How could anyone fight an enemy like that? Show us the battle recordings, Admiral Hai-jin ordered. New holograms appeared showing the space battle. Coalition ships fired their advanced weapons at dark, angular vessels. The first shots hit their targets, causing explosions and damage. But when the same ships fired again, their beams simply bounced off without effect. Dr. Se-un, the Academy's science officer, studied the recordings carefully. She was a quiet woman who usually stayed in her laboratory. Now she looked worried. The enemy ships seemed to have adaptive shielding, she explained. After analyzing any energy-based attack, their defenses changed to block it completely. I have never seen technology like this. More reports came in from across the galaxy. Border worlds were falling one by one. The proud Zephyrian fleet with their advanced particle disruptors lasted only 2 hours. The Gorlan Defense Force, using their gravity weapons, fell in less time. Veltar stood with the other alien cadets, his crystal skin pale with shock. The homeworld. My family lives there. Commander Yulbin placed a hand on the young alien's shoulder. The evacuation ships escaped before the main attack. Your family is safe, but everyone knew the truth. The Vorthak were advancing faster than anyone could run. At this rate, they would reach the core worlds within days. How is this possible? So Young asked. Our weapons are the most advanced in the galaxy. Dr. Sion pulled up more data on her screens. That might be exactly the problem. The Vorthak technology seems designed to counter advanced energy weapons. Their shields analyze the frequency, power level, and particle structure of any attack, then adapt to block it. General Wu Jin, the coalition's military commander, appeared on the main screen from his flagship. His weathered face showed the strain of losing battle after battle. We have tried everything, he reported. Plasma cannons, particle beams, energy torpedoes, even experimental quantum disruptors. Nothing works after the first hit. They adapt too quickly. Instructor Ji-hoon studied the battle recordings with intense focus. Hanwoo noticed his instructor's expression change as he watched the failed attacks. Admiral, Ji-hoon said slowly, what if the problem is not that our weapons are not powerful enough, but that they are too advanced? What do you mean? Admiral Hai-jin asked. Look at these recordings. Every weapon that fails is energy-based. Particle beams, plasma bolts, laser arrays. They all use complex energy patterns that computers can analyze. Dr. Se-un nodded as she understood. You think their adaptive shields are specifically designed to counter high-technology weapons? Exactly. But what if we use something so simple that their systems cannot adapt to it? Veltar looked confused. What could be simpler than a particle disruptor? Hanwoo felt everyone's eyes turn to him. His bow suddenly felt very heavy in his hands. You mean kinetic weapons? Admiral Hai-jin said. Physical projectiles instead of energy beams. It is just a theory, Ji-hoon replied. But think about it. These aliens clearly have advanced technology. They probably expect to face energy weapons and particle beams. Who would design shields to stop arrows and bullets? The command center fell silent as everyone considered this. The most advanced military force in the galaxy, stopped by primitive weapons? Captain Dongmin's voice crackled through the speakers again. Admiral, they are demanding surrender from all remaining coalition forces. They say resistance is useless against their adaptive technology. Tell them the coalition does not surrender. Admiral Hai Jin replied firmly. More reports flooded in. The Vorthak fleet was heading toward the Academy's sector. They would arrive within 18 hours. We need to evacuate, General Wu Jin said from his ship. All non-essential personnel should retreat to the inner systems. But Han Wu stepped forward. Admiral, what if Instructor Ji-hoon is right? What if we test kinetic weapons against their shields? Admiral Hai Jin looked at the young cadet with his simple bow. Around the room, the most advanced weapons in the galaxy sat useless after the first battle reports. It is too dangerous, she said. We cannot risk cadet lives on an untested theory. With respect, Admiral, Han Wu replied. We are all dead anyway if nothing stops them. At least let us try. Tae-hyun stepped up beside his roommate. I volunteered too. If Han Wu's bow can work, maybe modified kinetic weapons could help. So Young joined them. Count me in. Better to die fighting than running. One by one, other cadets volunteered. Even Veltar, despite having no experience with primitive weapons, raised his crystal hand. Admiral Hai Jin looked around the room at the young faces. These cadets had trained for years to defend the galaxy with the most advanced weapons available. Now they were volunteering to face an unstoppable enemy with tools their ancestors might have used. Dr. Se-yoon, the Admiral said, how quickly can we modify our manufacturing systems to produce kinetic projectiles? The fabrication labs could make simple arrows and metal bullets within hours, she replied. But Admiral, we have no idea if this will work. We have no idea if anything else will work either, Admiral Hai Jin said grimly. She turned to address the entire room. All senior cadets will assist in weapons modification. We have 18 hours to prepare a defense based on technology that is thousands of years old. As cadets rushed to their assignments, Han Wu remained behind. Admiral Hai Jin approached him. Cadet Han Wu, you understand that this plan depends entirely on your theory being correct? Yes, Admiral. But my grandfather always said that sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. Outside the Academy's windows, the stars looked cold and distant. Somewhere among them, an enemy fleet approached with technology that could adapt to any advanced weapon. The fate of the galaxy might depend on whether a wooden bow could do what particle disruptors could not. Han Wu checked his arrows one more time. Tomorrow he would find out if his grandfather's wisdom could save them all. The Academy's fabrication labs had never worked so hard. Engineer Jae-wook ran between machines that usually made energy weapon components, now retooled to produce arrows and simple metal projectiles. The sound of manufacturing filled the halls as cadets worked through the night. How many arrows can we make? Commander Yulbin asked, watching carbon fiber shafts roll off the production line. About 500 per hour, Jae-wook replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. But sir, I have never made weapons this simple. No targeting computers, no energy cores, just sharp metal points on sticks. Han Wu examined the finished arrows. They were not as perfect as his grandfather's handmade ones, but they would work. Each shaft was straight and balanced, with steel points that could punch through metal. Across the lab, Instructor Ji-hoon was teaching a crash course in archery to volunteers. Alien cadets struggled with the concept of aiming manually instead of letting computers do the work. Feel the weight of the bow, Ji-hoon instructed a group of Zephyrians. You must become one with the weapon. Veltar tried to draw a bowstring with his crystal hands. The string slipped and snapped back, making him jump. This is impossible. How do you control where it goes? Han Wu moved to help him. Like this, he said, showing Veltar how to hold the string with 3 fingers. Do not fight the bow. Work with it. After several tries, Veltar managed to hit a target at close range. His shot was not accurate, but the arrow stuck in the target board. He stared at it in amazement. I did that without any computer assistance? Yes, your own skill guided that arrow. Meanwhile, pilot Da-sam was working with engineers to modify fighter ships. Her small craft now carried mechanical launching systems instead of energy weapons. Magnetic rails could fire metal projectiles at high speed without any energy signature for enemies to detect. It feels wrong, she said, looking at her ship's new weapons. Like we are going backward in time. Sometimes you have to go backward to move forward, Han Wu replied. 12 hours later, the first Vorthak scout ship appeared at the edge of the system. Admiral Hai Jin watched it on the main screen as it moved slowly toward the academy. Just one ship, she said. They are testing our defenses. Commander Su Bin led a squadron of modified fighters toward the scout ship. Each craft carried kinetic weapons instead of energy beams. The pilots had practiced for only a few hours with their new equipment. Remember, Su Bin's voice came over the radio. Aim manually. Do not trust the targeting computers for these weapons. The coalition fighters approached the dark Vorthak vessel. It was larger than expected, with smooth black surfaces that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols glowed along its hull. Beginning attack run, Su Bin reported. The first pilot fired an energy torpedo, just to test the enemy's defenses. It struck the alien ship and exploded, leaving a small crater in the hull. But when a second torpedo hit the same spot, it simply bounced off without effect. Confirmed. Their shields adapt to energy weapons after first contact, Su Bin said. Now came the real test. Su Bin's fighter dove toward the enemy ship and fired its magnetic railgun. Simple metal projectiles shot toward the target at incredible speed. The Vorthak ship's shields flared as they tried to analyze the incoming attack. But there was nothing to analyze. No energy pattern, no particle beam, just solid metal moving very fast. The projectiles punched straight through the alien hull like it was paper. Direct hit, Su Bin shouted. The kinetic weapons work. They cannot adapt to simple metal. The Vorthak scout ship tried to return fire, but its weapons were designed for space combat against energy shields. Against the small, fast-moving coalition fighters, they were almost useless. Within minutes, the enemy scout was disabled and drifting. Back at the academy, cheers filled the command center. It works, Admiral Hai Jin said in amazement. Simple kinetic weapons can penetrate their shields. But the celebration was short. Long-range sensors detected the main Vorthak fleet approaching. Hundreds of ships, each one larger than the scout. They will be here in 6 hours, Dr. Seun reported. And now they know we have found a way to hurt them. Admiral Hai Jin turned to Han Wu. Cadet, I am authorizing you to lead a special weapons unit. Your experience with manual aiming could be crucial. Han Wu felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. I will do my best, Admiral. Engineer Jae Wook had been working on a special project. He brought Han Wu to see a modified fighter ship with mechanical bow systems built into its frame. We cannot make a bow big enough for space combat, he explained. But we can make a ship that fires arrows using mechanical systems. No energy signature, no computers to track, just pure kinetic force. The ship looked strange with its mechanical launching arms and arrow storage systems. But Han Wu understood how it worked. It was like his grandfather's bow, but much larger. Can I test it? Han Wu asked. We have one test arrow, Jae Wook said. Make it count. Han Wu climbed into the pilot seat. The controls were simple compared to energy weapon systems. A targeting sight, a draw mechanism, and a release trigger. Everything else depended on the pilot's skill. He aimed at a practice target floating in space near the academy. The arrow was as long as his arm and made of the strongest materials available. He drew the mechanical bow system and felt the power building. Target locked manually, he reported. Firing. The arrow shot from the ship like a missile. It covered the distance to the target in seconds and punched completely through the metal practice drone. Perfect shot, Pilot Dasam said over the radio. How did you aim without computers? The same way my grandfather taught me, Han Wu replied. You feel where the arrow wants to go. As the hours passed, more coalition ships arrived with hastily mounted kinetic weapons. Some carried magnetic railguns, others had mechanical crossbow systems, and a few had simple cannons that fired metal balls. The alien cadets who had mocked Han Wu's primitive weapon now begged for lessons in manual aiming. Feltar had become one of his best students, his crystal hands surprisingly steady on a bowstring. I understand now, Feltar said as they practiced. Advanced technology made us weak. We forgot how to aim for ourselves. 2 hours before the enemy fleet arrived, Han Wu received an unexpected message. His grandfather's face appeared on his personal communicator from Earth. Grandfather, Han Wu said in surprise. How did you get through military channels? The old man smiled. Your Admiral Hai Jin contacted me. She said you might need some advice from an old archer. The whole galaxy depends on arrows and bows now, grandfather. What if I fail? Listen to me, my grandson. A bow is not just a weapon. It is a bridge between your mind and your target. The arrow carries not just force but your will and focus. Trust in what I taught you. His grandfather's image flickered as the connection grew weak. Remember, the most important shot is always the next one. Do not think about missing. Think only about hitting. The communication ended, leaving Hanwoo alone with his thoughts. Around him, the Academy prepared for the most important battle in galactic history. Energy weapons sat silent while ancient tools of war took their place. Instructor Ji-hoon approached him. "Are you ready, Cadet?" Hanwoo checked his bow one final time. The wood was smooth under his fingers, worn by generations of use. His quiver held arrows made just hours ago, but crafted with the same principles his ancestors had used. "Yes, sir. I am ready." Through the Academy's windows, the Vorthak fleet appeared as distant points of light. Soon, those lights would become ships carrying weapons that could adapt to any advanced technology, but they had never faced an enemy armed with the galaxy's oldest weapons. Hanwoo climbed into his modified fighter and started the engines. Behind him, other pilots prepared ships armed with bows, crossbows, and simple projectile weapons. The most advanced military academy in the galaxy was about to fight with tools that belonged in a museum. But as his grandfather always said, the best weapon was the one that hit its target. Today, Hanwoo would find out if that wisdom could save them all. The Vorthak fleet filled the space around the academy like a dark cloud. Hundreds of enemy ships moved in perfect formation, their black hulls reflecting no light. They had come expecting an easy victory against a primitive species that still used energy weapons. Hanwoo sat in his modified fighter, watching the enemy fleet through his cockpit window. His grandfather's bow lay secured beside him along with a quiver of arrows. Around him, other coalition ships waited with their hastily converted kinetic weapons. "All ships, this is Admiral Hai-jin," came the voice over the radio. "Today we fight not with our most advanced weapons but with our oldest. Remember, the enemy can adapt to energy patterns, but they cannot change the laws of physics. A fast-moving piece of metal will punch through their shields no matter how advanced they think they are." Lieutenant Bo Ra, a former prisoner who had escaped from the Vorthak, provided crucial intelligence through the communication system. "Their main command ship is the largest one in the center," she reported. "It controls the fleet's adaptive shield network. If we can disable it, their other ships will be vulnerable." Hanwoo studied the enemy formation. The command ship was huge, easily 10 times larger than any coalition vessel. But his grandfather had taught him that size did not always mean strength. "Hanwoo," Admiral Hai-jin's voice came directly to his ship. "You have the most experience with kinetic weapons. I want you to lead the first attack run." "Understood, Admiral." The battle began when the Vorthak ships fired their first volley. Energy beams lanced through space toward the coalition fleet. But the human ships had learned from previous battles. They moved in unpredictable patterns, making themselves hard to hit. Commander Su-bin led a group of fighters armed with magnetic railguns. They dove toward the enemy fleet, firing simple metal projectiles at high speed. The Vorthak ships' shields flared as they tried to analyze the incoming attacks, but there was nothing to analyze. Just metal moving very fast. The projectiles punched straight through the alien hulls. Direct hits across the fleet. Su-bin reported, "Their shields cannot stop kinetic weapons." But the Vorthak quickly adapted their tactics. Instead of relying on shields, they began using their superior numbers to overwhelm the coalition forces. For every human ship, there were 10 enemy vessels. Hanwoo saw his chance when several Vorthak ships moved to surround a group of coalition fighters. He flew his modified ship toward the enemy formation, staying low to avoid their energy weapons. His ship's mechanical bow system was loaded with the longest arrow they had made. It was nearly 2 meters of carbon fiber and steel, designed to punch through the heaviest armor. "Target the command ship's main antenna array," Lieutenant Bo Ra advised. "If you can disable their communications, their fleet coordination will collapse." Hanwoo could see the target, a cluster of delicate sensor arrays on top of the massive command ship. They looked fragile compared to the heavily armored hull, but they were small and far away. He lined up his shot manually, just as his grandfather had taught him. No computers, no targeting assistance, just his own skill and judgment. The enemy ship was moving, so he had to calculate where it would be when the arrow arrived. "Remember," his grandfather's voice echoed in his memory, "the arrow goes where your mind directs it. See the target, Feel the distance, then trust in your training. Han Wu drew the mechanical bow to full power and released. The arrow shot through space faster than any normal bow could fire. It traced a perfect arc toward the command ship, adjusting slightly as gravitational fields affected its path. The Vorthak never saw it coming. Their sensors were designed to detect energy weapons and guided missiles. A simple arrow flying through space was beneath their notice. The carbon fiber shaft struck the antenna array dead center and shattered it completely. Sparks flew from the damaged equipment as the command ship lost contact with half its fleet. Incredible shot. Admiral Haijin called over the radio. The enemy fleet is losing coordination. But Han Wu's attack had revealed his position. 3 Vorthak ships turned their weapons toward his fighter. Energy beams lanced through space around him as he tried to dodge. Then an unexpected voice came over his radio. Han Wu, this is your grandfather. I am coming to help. Grandfather, how are you here? A small Earth transport ship appeared beside Han Wu's fighter. Through its cockpit window, he could see his grandfather's weathered face. The old man was wearing a spacesuit and carrying his own ancient bow. Admiral Haijin sent a ship to Earth for me, his grandfather explained. She thought you might need an experienced archer. Master Archer Hyun Woo's transport ship was even more primitive than Han Wu's fighter. It had no weapons except a simple airlock that could be opened to fire arrows into space. But grandfather, you are 70 years old, and I have been shooting arrows for 60 of those years. Age brings wisdom, my grandson. The old man's ship moved alongside the Vorthak vessels with surprising skill. When he opened his airlock, the vacuum of space tried to pull everything out. But his grandfather had secured himself with safety lines. Hyun Woo drew his bow in the zero gravity of space and fired through the open airlock. His arrow traveled in a perfect straight line and struck a Vorthak ship's engine system. The enemy vessel began spinning out of control. How did you aim in zero gravity? Han Wu asked in amazement. The same way I aim anywhere else. You feel where the arrow wants to go. Together, grandfather and grandson flew through the enemy fleet. Their arrows found weak points that energy weapons had never been designed to exploit. Sensor arrays, engine vents, communication equipment, all the delicate systems that kept the massive ships functioning. Other coalition pilots watched in amazement as 2 humans with wooden bows disabled enemy vessels that particle disruptors could not scratch. Veltar's voice came over the radio from his own modified fighter. Han Wu, I am trying to use what you taught me, but I keep missing. Remember, Han Wu replied, do not aim where the target is. Aim where it will be. Veltar's next arrow struck a Vorthak ship's shield generator, and the entire vessel became vulnerable to energy weapons. The battle raged for hours. Coalition ships armed with crossbows, railguns, and simple projectile weapons fought against the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. The Vorthak had superior technology, but they had never prepared for an enemy that deliberately used primitive weapons. The turning point came when Han Wu identified the Vorthak command ship's critical weakness. Lieutenant Bo Ra had mentioned that their shield network required constant communication between ships. If the main control center was damaged, the entire fleet would lose its adaptive capability. Grandfather, Han Wu called over the radio, I need to hit a very small target on the command ship, but it is inside their hull behind armor plating. Show me, the old man replied. Han Wu transmitted his sensor data. The target was an internal control room protected by layers of metal armor. No normal arrow could reach it, but Hyun Wu smiled as he studied the ship's design. There, he said, pointing to a small ventilation port. That opening leads directly to their control center. But the shot would have to be perfect. The ventilation port was barely larger than an arrow shaft. It was moving as the ship rotated, and it was over a kilometer away. Even with a perfect shot, the arrow would have to travel through several meters of ducting to reach the target. I cannot make that shot, Han Wu said. It is impossible. No shot is impossible, his grandfather replied. Only difficult. Watch and learn. Master Archer Hyun Wu drew his bow with steady hands that showed no sign of his age. He studied the target for a long moment, calculating angles and distances that no computer could measure. Then he released. The arrow flew through space in a perfect arc. It entered the tiny ventilation port exactly in the center and disappeared into the Vorthak ship. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then explosions began erupting throughout the command ship's hull. The arrow had struck something vital deep inside the vessel. Emergency lights flashed as the massive ship began losing power. Their shield network is down, Dr. Seyun reported from the academy. All Vorthak ships are vulnerable to energy weapons now. The Coalition fleet immediately switched back to their advanced weapons. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes struck the enemy ships, which could no longer adapt to the attacks. Without their shield network, the Vorthak fleet was helpless. One by one, enemy ships began retreating. Their commander had never faced an enemy that deliberately used primitive weapons against advanced technology. They had no defense against tactics that made no logical sense. As the last Vorthak ship disappeared into hyperspace, the Coalition fleet gathered around the academy. Cheers filled every radio channel as pilots celebrated their impossible victory. Han Wu flew his fighter back to the academy's docking bay, where crowds of cadets waited to greet him. When he climbed out of his ship still carrying his grandfather's bow, even the alien cadets cheered. Veltar approached him with his crystal skin gleaming with excitement. Han Wu, you must teach me more about archery. I want to understand how you think. We can all learn together, Han Wu replied. Admiral Hai Jin announced that the Academy would create a new department for traditional weapons integration. Han Wu became the youngest instructor in the Academy's history, teaching courses in kinetic combat theory.